Detail adjust. Balance. About face. Forward. Half.
Believe it or not, Ripley, this is everyday stuff in the old swimming hole at Camp Gordon, Johnston, Florida. It's what they call an amphibious training center, and these men are getting hep to moving in on the enemy by attack through water. In this manner, each man becomes his own invasion barge, thereby saving much precious metal for lieutenants' bars. The swimming stroke used may be varied: breaststroke, side stroke, Australian crawl. However, most of these men seem to prefer the Fido flip. Of course, if the going gets too hot, there's the trick of shedding equipment and getting the hell out fast. After removing his rifle, the man takes a floating position on his back, unfastens his pack belt, then swims forward to get free of his equipment. If the floating position has become a sinking position by now, the soldier has a perfect right to get in touch with his sergeant. Another nifty that must be learned is how to jump from a boat deck fully equipped without breaking your neck or remaining submerged for the duration. It might be possible to make this jump with your helmet on and your gun in your hands. It might also be possible that your neck will make a distinct snapping noise and your rifle will leave you with no hands for swimming. These 10 easy lessons are somewhat similar to parachute troops training, except there's no parachute, no view, and no air to breathe when you land. But there is the advantage of coming up now and then with a mackerel for dinner. This is one of the more pleasant periods of amphibious training, the chance for a swim without equipment. Except for the little disadvantage of burning oil on the water. Again, the men learn how to beat the rat by swimming underwater as long as possible and coming up with hands before the face to push away the burning oil. In an actual emergency, they may be swimming away from the flames, not toward them. These flames have to be chased because they've been kicked around so much they know they can't win. And a couple of other incendiaries must be getting the same feeling, particularly that flame on Tojo's so-called rising.
Listen, gents, I've been pushing the heck around New York for quite a couple of years, namely 22. It is my personal experience there is more automobiles in Set City than there is people. How would you like to have to navigate through this mob in order to make a nice couple of dollars? Well, I was going to retire and take up a new line of business until certain Japanazis decided to clop us on the chops. First result is I don't have to retire because this here war has made from traffic a dead mackerel. Right away, mobs decide they can put away the Buicks and use the feet. And I'm telling you, getting dead Story's face is worse than getting into the World Series. This, of course, has now eliminated the Sunday drivers, the characters who make right turns from the left and left turns from the right, and various other citizens, mostly of the opposite sex, who should never have been allowed to drive in the first place if I had anything to say about it. The way it is now, a person who wants to go from Greenpoint to Harlem has got to use the subways. So everybody is very happy with the possible exception of the street cleaning department, because a lot of people from Brooklyn had horses hidden under rocks from which they now have come out of retirement. Now I got something else in my mind. This is the old village after dark with the Mazdas lighting up the double crossroads of the world, the main stem, the Hardin artery. You're right, brother, good old Broadway. It was a kind of a pretty sight with the neons twinkle like little stars in sections like Flatbush and even Staten Island. Well, this here practice is now a memory. We got ourselves a dim on account of the way the ships stand out against our lights. So, come 6 o'clock, Fifth Avenue looks like it was in Hackensack, and I wouldn't have believed it. I also wouldn't have believed it if you said you couldn't go to Louis the grocer and buy all the tomato and pea soup you wanted, like, for instance, this doll is doing in the good old days before this war, on which you gents is an expert. A lot of you also had to have the Mazuma to pay for that hardtack. But that's not the problem now. You can have a zillion bucks, but the way it is now, you gotta be a certified public accountant to buy a can of pork and beans. This improvement is what is known as rationing, which I will now explain to you. First, you gotta add up what you got, like these ladies are doing. Then if what you got ain't enough, you start to make a list of what it takes to feed the relatives, the kids, and maybe a couple of old cousins thrown in. After you do this, you go and you stand on line to get a book, without which the grocery will positively give you a fisheye. Oh, by the way, this standing on line, gents, we picked up from the Army. And by the way, we'll be very glad to give it right back to you. So after quite a little wait, you get yourself a ration book number 2, which entitles you to 48 points of groceries each and every month, which makes certain people, for instance, my wife, brood whether there is the what and a bottle of ketchup, or to play it safe and buy a couple of small cans of corn, which positively gives me indigestion. You can see for yourself that this causes quite a bit of trouble. Excepting for a gent who was very ambitious and got himself a wife and 8 kids, making him practically the most popular guy in Long Island City. But here comes the real pain in the neck, trying to juggle the points so that everything comes out. This makes filling out income taxes strictly for amateurs. And there are lots of people who now wish they hadn't played hooky when a teacher was given out with addition and subtraction. Because if you don't figure right, you have nothing to chew on but fresh vegetables, which is hay strictly for citizens that chew their cuds, or maybe rabbits. But even me and all the other characters in Manhattan ain't those. And this goes for all the citizens in the suburbs, which reaches to the Los Angeles county line. We know where the gas is going and the electric light bulbs and the ketchup. You're getting it, gents, and that's okay with us. Eat hearty, bub, and bring the pennant back to the guys who are sitting in the bleachers yelling for a home run.
Yes, these are reindeer. The Russians use them to pull sleds over territory where motors would break down. They haul everything from guns to dynamite, and they're particularly useful to bring food to snipers way out in front of the regular infantry units. Speaking of food, the Russian soldier likes his iron rations hot. Field kitchens like this are set up wherever the troops are. Since some of the men are off in foxholes working at their favorite sport of knocking off the Nazis, other soldiers deliver their meals to them. This man is getting his favorite dish, borscht. There's another sniper working hard. Here's his personal way to come in with his lunch. It looks like macaroni, but it's probably shashlik or beef stroganoff. A man feels like working after a good feed, and this soldier is no exception. He's found himself a Nazi. Bingo! He gets the baby doll, which in this case happens to be a shower bath. Yep, a shower bath in a country where the temperature is about 30 below zero. A temporary tent is set up, and the snipers show they've got guts as they start to strip. The water comes from melted ice and is heated in special trucks. Down to the rind, the men do a good job with soap and hot water. Singing in the bathroom is just as popular here as it is in Kalamazoo. And they dry themselves off, carefully comb their hair in case they run into a girl sniper from back home, and start back refreshed and ready to pick off a few more of the Heron folk.
One letter doesn't weigh an awful lot, but you GIs overseas add up in the millions. Your girls and folks back home make a lot of millions more. Your letters take a lot of shipping space, and so, letters or guns? That's the question the War Department had to face, and they solved it by giving you both, and giving it to you fast with V-Mail. The same form is used everywhere, with room for 400 typewritten words. Any writing tool can be used, typewriter, pen, or pencil. So long as pencils like this are avoided, it's too hard and its mark is almost invisible. A softer pencil photographs like ink. Every day, more and more people use V-mail, and it's always a rush job as far as the post office is concerned. By nightfall, this stack of letters will be on microfilm and on its way across. As the stream of V-mail pouches pours in, the letters are sliced open by a cutting machine, and they are now ready for quick processing. First of all, the letters are sent to the separation tables, where an experienced staff, instructed never to read the mail, sorts it into destination groups, making sure each V-mail letter has been correctly prepared. More than 10% of letters coming in have to be returned. You can't photograph enclosures, snapshots, stamps, bad writing, and so back they go. Correct letters, once they are sorted into destination groups, are given numbers. Then, in trim bundles of 1,600, the V-mail is ready for the next step. In a few short minutes, all these letters will be on a reel of film. Here are the machines that do it. They are called air draft machines, and they photograph each letter onto one tiny frame of a reel of 16mm film. A flash of light, a snapping shutter, then another, 1,600 frames per reel. That's room for 1,600 letters. The end of the reel. 1,600 letters from folks at home on 100 feet of film. Before more letters go through, another reel of unexposed negative must be put into the camera, and the previous reel sent for development. Out of the air draft machine comes the camera unit, and out of the camera comes the tiny reel of film. The developers can handle 3 reels an hour, and when the film is dried, it's ready to go. On this table are 260 reels of film, in which are recorded all of the 605,000 V-mail letters contained by the 150 mail pouches behind. 70 pounds against 37 tons. Facts that have a special meaning for the planes by which V-mail is always carried to its overseas destination. The quickest, lightest Army-Navy mail service in history. It's V-mail. At every major destination point are the same facilities for processing incoming V-mail quickly. For V-mail coming in, the job is enlargement. And so the reels of microfilm are sent immediately to the printing room, where this enlargement machine prints the letters by exactly the same process that home snapshots are enlarged. The enlarging machines can take 3 reels an hour, printing facsimiles so that the V-mail is legible once more after its ocean journey in knockdown size. Letters are 5.5 by 4 inches now, just half the original size. Sliced into separate letters again, the V-mail is nearly ready to seek its destination by ordinary mail procedures from here on. Folding the V-mail facsimile letters so that they'll fit into special V-mail envelopes is accomplished easily by machine. And then the trim stack is ready for the final step, inserting the facsimiles into envelopes and then sealing them. Again by machine for speed. 3,000 an hour. The letters are inserted so that the address on the facsimile appears through a little window in the envelope. That's all. They're ready for delivery. You may not be able to get a clip from your local newspaper or smell Susie's perfume, but brother, V-mail saves space and time, and that means you're going to get home sooner. So use it.
At one time and another, it was my good fortune to have under my command on Guadalcanal men of all the armed services of the United States. If anyone ever held the idea that members of our different fighting units could not work together harmoniously and loyally to achieve a common purpose. One brief visit to that battle area would have quickly dispelled any such thought. We had there Army air and ground units, Navy units working on the sea, on the land and in the air, and Marines of all kinds. You could not tell one man or one unit from another. They dressed alike, looked alike, and they fought alike. No shirking. There was no insincerity. Willing hands were found for every task. Not only is that battered island in our hands, but also American soldiers, sailors, and Marines have shattered forever the myth of Japanese invincibility. In the early months of the war, while the Japanese war machine moved steadily from one conquest to another, many people undoubtedly asked themselves what manner of men these were, and how would our troops fare once battle was joined. They now have their answer. Do not, however, mistake my meaning. I say we will conquer, but that conquest will not be easy. It will demand the best in every one of us. Against Japanese craftiness, the American fighting man pits a superior intelligence. The Japanese is trained to fight bravely and die. The American is trained to fight, win, and live. It is apparent that much of the war against the Japanese will be fought in woods and jungle. Prepare yourself physically. Jungle fighting is hard going and calls for the best that is in you. Learn to hit hard and unceasingly.
Thanks to your leadership, sir, we did hit, and hit hard at Guadalcanal. And these Japs could testify to it. Time and time again, they bombed Henderson Field, trying to blast us out of an air base strategically necessary to maintain our supply lines in the South Pacific. But they never succeeded. After each attack, we went to work with men and tractors. Tractors hauled thousands of miles across open sea and had Henderson as good as new in 24 hours. Our fortresses were able to land after leaving souvenirs on Japanese installations that they won't soon forget. The heroism of our Marines and airmen and of the soldiers who relieved them are part of the great spirit and determination that chased the Japs out of Guadalcanal, their tails between their legs. And here are some other heroes. The Spook, the Lay's Lady, the Boomerang, who worked ceaselessly in the action that finally made Guadalcanal ours. And hats off to the Navy for protection on the sea. Proof, sir, of that great cooperation between the services of which you spoke. And proof, too, that we're an unbeatable team. We'll be right behind you, sir, when you post the final score in Tokyo.